Hey guys, Shalana here. Welcome to the Binge Zone, where we talk about TV shows, movies, and miniseries. Today we'll be talking about Netflix's latest original series, Frontier. Now, Frontier stars none other than Aquaman himself, Khal Drogo himself, Jason Momoa. But enough of my fanboying around. Let's just jump into the review. Now, Frontier takes place in Canada during the 1700s, where the European powers came and they dealt a lot in fur trading. So that's the basic backdrop of the story. And then we have the main protagonist, Momoa himself, who plays Declan Harp, who is half Irish, half Native American, who's waging a war against the Hudson Bay Company, which are the British colonial powers at the time. And they play the main protagonist of the series. That's pretty much the gist of the story. There are a bunch of people fighting over fur trade routes and things like that. And at first, it sounds kind of as a storyline, but as you watch the show, it starts to entertain you if you can get past the first two episodes, because that was my biggest gripe. The first two episodes, I felt like we were introduced to this massive world and they confused me for like a good while, because they tried to throw in so many different areas like Northern Canada, Southern Canada, Europe, the Indians, sorry, not Indians, but Native Americans, the Hudson Bay Company, the Brown Brothers Company, and various other companies. Like, there was so much going on and there was so much world building they tried to do in 2 episodes while introducing us to all the main characters of the series: Declan Hart, Lord Baton, Michael Smith, and the women in charge of the everything that's pretty much going on. So I felt like there was so much going on in the first 2 episodes that I needed a breather, and I almost stopped watching this series because I felt like it was too much exposition, too much narrating, and too much different accents. Like, so many things, like I said, were going on in the first 2 episodes. I kind of jumbled it. But once you get past the first 2 episodes, the series kind of finds its pacing, in the sense that it can tell the story that it wants to tell once it's established pretty much everything there is to establish. Now, keeping up with these type of series, there's lots of violence, blood, guts, and fight scenes. Like, the fight scenes of this show are pretty amazing. Like, the goriness, the torture scenes. Like, there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of things. So the times back then were pretty barbaric, and we're dealing with Native Americans warring with Englishmen and barbarians such as Momoa's character living amongst them, fighting, and like, it gets to a lot. So if you're not into gratuitous violence like I am, like, it'll get to a lot of it, and it kind of feels like unnecessary at times, but also pretty badass. So it's like I said, it's really up to the taste of the viewer. But overall, like, the show, I felt like was very lackluster from what the trailer gave me, because I expected some grand epic, and I found out it was about fur trading. Not that this fur trading, but fur trading. Like, how badass could you make it? And the show did its job to make it as badass as it could while trying to tell us a decent story. But I couldn't really connect with most of the characters on this show, because I felt like the characters themselves were caricatures of certain archetypes. Like, Lord Benton, for example, is the evil mastermind who sits behind his desk, twirls his figurative mustache at the pieces of the puzzle falling, or whether it's his right-hand man, Chesterfield, who is the evil, conniving bad guy who tries to betray his master, or whether it's Momoa's character himself, Declan Harp, who is the guy who went native on them and decided to join his ancestral Native American side in revolting these characters, and even some of the other characters that are introduced later on in the series. But one thing the show did get right with its characters is the women character. I love the fact that there were so many women in charge in this series, whether it's Grace Emerly, who is in charge of the tavern, or it's Mrs. Carruthers, who takes over her husband's trade company, or it's the leader of the Native Americans, who is in charge of essentially the entire trade routes, because they have to trade with her tribe and she's in charge. So we have these 3 powerful women who pretty much dictate how the world is running around them, and they're pretty much puppeteering, or the masterminds behind these men. Like, they're the ones who move the story progressively along. But like I said, overall the show is pretty decent. It had some pacing issues. The first 2 episodes were just too much, and as the show went on, like, it got progressively better. And the last episode and a half were the pinnacle of the show. And it's only 6 episodes. So, like, I feel like they tried to do too much in a 6-episode time span, which is why they kind of butchered the first 2 episodes. But overall, I would give this show I'd give it 2.5 out of 5, if only because of the subject matter that it touches the fact that it touches Native American culture in that time, and it gives stories and voices to characters who don't usually get them in mainstream media. And I love the fact that Netflix was able to shoot on site at some of these locations. So that alone gives the show a 2.5 out of 5. It could have been higher had they fixed the first 2 episodes and made it better. So Frontier, have you seen it? Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and until next time guys, as always, binge on.